Today, I'll be going over the 10 best dividend stocks that I own. Dividend stock, something I actually haven't talked about on my channel specifically in a little bit, so I decided to make a video about that one today, and I wanted to share with you not only dividend stocks I like, obviously because they're in my portfolio, but I mean it's relatively easy to say that this stock's a good stock, but I think you need to back it up a little bit, and obviously I am backing it up a little bit because I do own these in my Robinhood portfolio. And if you haven't checked out my portfolio before, I post plenty of videos on my channel constantly updating it and stuff. So definitely check out those videos if you want to check out my whole portfolio. But anyways, getting on to the video, I'm going to go in order here from the highest paying dividend yield to not the lowest, but the top 10, because I own more than 10 stocks in my portfolio, and I also have more than 10 dividend yielding stocks in my portfolio. But anyways, number one overall is Apple Hospitality, ticker symbol APLE. This is a REIT, and this is a monthly dividend stock, and they have an extremely high dividend yield, like I said, because they're a monthly dividend stock as well as an REIT, and that's sort of what they're known for. This company specifically for giving out a relatively high and monthly yield. And most stocks give a quarterly dividend, so it's a little bit different in that aspect. Next on the list is Main Street Capital, ticker symbol MAIN. Main Street has a 5.66 dividend yield, and once again, not an REIT technically, but also another company that gives out their dividend yield monthly, and they are pretty well known for having a high yield as well. So those are two actually pretty solid monthly dividend stocks that I like that you might like as well. After that comes AT&T, ticker symbol T, which was actually down quite a bit today after the news of their merger with Time Warner, and they have a dividend yield at around 5% or so, which is actually very, very high, and it's not like a monthly dividend yielding stock or anything like that. So, you know, it's just a pretty normal, typical stock, actually quite a blue chip stock, so it's pretty interesting to see a company with that high of a yield. After that is Southern, ticker symbol SO, and Southern has a 4.78% dividend yield, and Southern and AT&T, definitely not strong growth stocks by any means at all, but that dividend yield does help quite a bit. I mean, getting a guaranteed 5% returns or so a year back is a pretty good return, you know, even if the stock was to break even or something like that. After that is O, Reality Income. They have a yield at around 4.5%. This is another monthly dividend yielding stock, and as you can see, most of the stocks at the top of the list give out monthly yields, and they're pretty well known for their yields. And Reality Income, in my opinion, is probably one of the best monthly dividend stocks out there, and probably one of my favorite in my portfolio. After that is actually an ETF, technically not a stock, but still has a pretty high dividend yield, and also a monthly dividend yield, which is its ticker symbol SPHD. It's basically an ETF that covers, I think it's the 50 highest yielding stocks, but also with the lowest volatility in the S&P 500. So it's you could definitely head over, just Google SPHD Holdings if you want to check out some of the stocks they own. After that is General Motors, ticker symbol GM, 3.71 yield. This is a stock that I think adds a little bit of diversity to my portfolio. Not one that's like my favorite stock by any means, but they do have very nice yield to go along with it, which is nice. After that is Pfizer, ticker symbol PFE. They have a 3.59 yield, and once again, not a super strong growth stock, but a stock that still has, somewhat growth. It's probably more of a value stock, and they actually do have a very nice yield as well to complement that. After that is AbbVie, another healthcare stock, ticker symbol ABBV. AbbVie has a little bit below than a 2% yield. They have a 2.72% yield, and this AbbVie is actually a pretty solid growth stock. They've been performing very, very well, one of my best performers in my portfolio. And last, coming in at number 10, is Pepsi, ticker symbol PEP. Once again, just quickly going to go, actually I should talk a little bit about Pepsi, I guess. Pepsi has a 2.64 dividend yield, and very close to some of its competitors out there. Coke actually is very close, has a 2.23 yield. But anyways, guys, that's the list of the stocks that have the highest yields in my portfolios. Now, just because these stocks have the highest yields doesn't actually mean that they're necessarily the best dividend stocks out there. Stocks often that have too dangerously high yields, leaning towards 8 or 10% plus, those stocks definitely, likely aren't going to be able to sustain that dividend yield for very long. One very important thing that I looking at when looking at a stock's dividend yield is whether a couple minutes ago, I actually had to double check it real quick. I was almost 100% sure that was incorrect. I wrote down my notes that Coke had a 2.23 dividend yield, but they actually have a 3.23 dividend yield. So just to note, Coke would be on that top 10 list instead of one of the bottom ones, but that was a mistake. I wrote it down incorrectly in my notes. But anyways, like I was saying, just because the stock has a high yield doesn't mean they're going to continue to give out that dividend. One thing that I like looking at, especially in terms of recent times, is that in 07-08 during the recession, if a stock cut its dividend yield then, they're likely to cut it again, in my opinion, if another recession would come, because that really only makes sense. And a couple other things you might want to look at when looking at stocks and their history of their dividend yields. Have they been giving out consistently, and have they been increasing their dividend yield consistently? Because there are other dividend aristocrats and dividend kings out there that have stocks that have been increasing their dividend yield for a certain number of years, whether it be 25 or 50 years. So that is a couple things to take into consideration. And some other things you might want to take into consideration when looking at dividend yielding stocks. A lot of stocks, even though they're giving out a dividend yield, they might not actually have any room to actually still be giving out this yield. So that might mean they're going to cut it, might not mean they're going to cut it. The funny thing about dividends is that even companies that aren't very profitable, like they're actually not making a whole lot of money, still are giving out dividend yields at very, very high percentages, either because they're probably going to cut it sometime in the future, or just because they really want to give that incentive and that benefit to their shareholders. So a lot of people like to say, which is true and it sort of makes sense financially, that if a company has rooms in their profits to give out a dividend yield, they should. But there are tons and tons of companies out there that are making enormous profits, have been in the market for quite a while, and they still aren't giving out dividends back to their shareholders, and it's really just the company's choice. So dividend yields and whether or not a company is going to give it out, whether or not they're going to increase it, whether or not they're going to cut it, it really depends on a lot of things. And honestly, at the end of the day, it's really a company's decision. They could, there's plenty, like I said, plenty of companies out there that shouldn't be increasing their dividend yield, but they are. And there's also plenty of companies out there that are decreasing it, even though they have room to increase it. And there's also companies that just aren't giving it out at all. But anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave it a like. And one other thing, like I've said in my past videos, if you're interested in investing in the stock market and like to talk about that stuff, definitely consider joining the Facebook group. It's in the description below. I'll probably drop a comment on it as well. Facebook group is called Investing Community. It's a closed group, so I have to approve for you to get in, as well as my other moderators. And also, if you have an Instagram and you want to follow me on Instagram, check me out. I'm Jake Jones Investing. I post investing, financial, business content on that. But other than that, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video.